Hi, my name's Juan Dieppa. I'm from the class of 1978. I was a young boy, 6 years old. I was kind of chubby and short, and lived in Guatemala with my mom and my dad and one of my sisters. My older siblings, which were two brothers and a sister, lived in Miami because they were already in high school when we moved to Guatemala. My father suddenly passed away in an airplane accident, and so we came immediately back to Miami, and my mother sacrificed my father's life insurance, and she stuck me into Belen. I had no idea what Belen was about, but there I was, an all-boys school for the first time. I'm in my homeroom class, and they're taking roll call, and they mentioned my name, Juan Dieppa, and I noticed that a lot of the students turned around in amazement, and I didn't know what it was about. And after the class, they asked me if I was George Dieppa's brother. And I said, yes, I am. And I didn't know why they were asking me that, but later, of course, I found out that my brother was a track star and a football star there at Belen. And so my brother was my ride to Belen. My mother said, you have to take your brother to school every day and bring him back. He was a senior that year. I was in 8th grade. And he said, sure, but he's going to have to go to practice with me because I do sports. And so he said, if you're going to go to practice with me, you're going to participate. And so he made me an equipment manager for the football teams, which was great because I got to see his senior year, which was great football. And then he also made me run track in 8th grade. And I ran track without a shirt on in most of the meets because I couldn't count. But I actually did pretty well. I shot up about a foot in height, lost my weight, and became a pretty decent runner. Carlos Barquin told me, you have to run cross-country next year. We need you on the cross-country team. And so I ran cross-country in 9th grade. I was the fourth man. I ran pretty well. And in track, I was running the mile, the half mile, and the mile relay. And one of the biggest moments of my career, I think, at Belen was that in 9th grade, in one of the invitational meets, Paco Ruiz, senior, was an assistant coach. I ran the mile, and he came up to me and he says, you just tied my school record for the mile. And that was in 9th grade. So that really motivated me. I really respected Paco Ruiz. And so that kept me going. My brother in his senior year ended up winning Athlete of the Year at Belen. And to me, that was I was very impressed and motivated by his accomplishments. I was fortunate enough to where he then went to college and was studying sports administration, and he became an assistant coach. So he became an assistant coach in track, and so he had a lot of influence on me. The other one who was a tremendous influence to me, of course, was Carlos Barquin. And to me, really, he spent so many hours with me since 8th grade all the way to senior year in both cross country and track and field. That to me, Barquin was almost like a dad. He was my afternoon dad. And so Barquin was not only very technical in teaching techniques of running and high jumping and long jumping and how to breathe, how to run, how to train. Very, very smart coach. But he would take you aside, and when he saw that you were faltering a little bit on the toughness or the mental toughness, he would talk to you. And a lot of the stuff that Carlos would talk to me about still resonates today in my life, in business and at home. And they're principles that pretty much have helped me get through life. Stamina, not to give up. It's a long race. There's a beginning, a middle, and an end. Make it all count. So those two guys, George and for Carlos, were very strong influences in my life. Three people in my life, I think. One is my brother George, who became a mentor to me in sports. I have an older brother who later became my mentor on the business side. He was a businessman, and I worked with him, and I learned a lot about the business. I followed him in that same business, and it led to me where I am today. He taught me a lot about the business side. George taught me everything about the sports side, and even continued to teach me on the sports side. And then I gotta mention my mother. My mother passed away during the pandemic at 95, but I'll still remember being at cross-country meets and track meets where I could hear, out of everybody screaming, I could hear her one voice screaming on the side, calling my name, Nino, Nino. And she used to tell, it's funny, but she's a Cuban mother, she used to say, sígate, to the other kids, kind of like putting a curse on them so that they wouldn't beat me. So, but she was there at my the athletic dinners where I got the athlete of the years, and she just always made me so proud. So I think those 3 people, or 4 people, and then there's Barking. So my 2 brothers, my mother, and Carlos Barking are probably the most people that have influenced me the most in my life that I would like to thank of helping me achieve where I'm at today with this.